Hi, this is guidance for Criterion F Strand 3, in which you will justify an appropriate scale and volume of production based on appropriate research and suitability of the product. Your choice for the scale of production depends on the number of products required. Decisions on scale of production are influenced by the volume or quantity required based on the understanding of the target market, the types of materials used to make the product, and the type of product that is being manufactured. This table shows the different scales of productions that you might consider. It has a description of the reasons for your selection of the appropriate scale of production, advantages, disadvantages, and examples of commercially viable products. For our purposes, we're probably going to want to be picking batch or mass production, or maybe the mass customization. Definitely not one-off or continuous flow are probably not going to be appropriate for most of the products that we'll be creating. The volume of production you select will be determined by appropriate research based on realistic demand or numbers of units calculated. When you're considering demand, you need to consider market sectors. So a market sector is a broad way of categorizing different groups of potential users at a macro level. These sectors can be influenced by the introduction of a new product, new technology, or wider economic influences such as the state of the economy, and they are dynamic. They increase and decrease in size. Examples of market sectors include the following: energy, materials, industrial, consumer staples, consumer discretionary, healthcare, financial, information technology, communication, utilities, and real estate. Companies consider market sectors in the design and manufacture of products. Markets and market sectors can be broken down into market segments and target markets. You will need to go through a process to find your target market. You should start with the market, which is the actual and potential buyers of a product or service. You're going to want to segment that market, and this is the process of dividing the market into subgroups of similar customers. Once you have that segmented market, that's the subgroup of people who share similarities that can be used for a more efficient seller and buyer relationship. You want to identify that target market, which is the subgroup of people who represent the greatest opportunity for targeting a product. Market segmentation involves the breakup of markets into smaller divisions or segments. Consumers within the market segment are identified as having similar characteristics. It is these characteristics that allow for careful targeting of products and services. This table shows some market segments divided into geographic, demographic, psychographic, and behavioral segments. This is a high-performing example of Strand 3 of Criterion F. The student has conducted some research to determine a percentage of the total student population who would be interested in purchasing their product. This leads to a reasonable initial volume. The student correctly determines the time needed to create the required number of items and justifies an appropriate scale of production based on the volume of items required, the desired and appropriate manufacturing method, and the consideration of cost requirements. This is an example of medium performance on this strand. The student has identified a nominal percentage of the total student population who would be interested in purchasing their product. This leads to a reasonable initial volume. The student correctly determines the time needed to create the required number of items and identifies an appropriate scale of production based on the volume of the items required, the desired and appropriate manufacturing method, and a consideration of cost requirements. To access the higher mark band, the student would need to provide evidence of why the volume was appropriate and why batch production was the most appropriate scale of production. This is an example of low performance on this strand. The student assumes all students would purchase this product. This is unrealistic. There is no consideration or understanding demonstrated of how new products disseminate into the market. The candidate would have benefited from conducting some research with a sample of students to find out how many would be interested in purchasing the product, and then basing their initial production volume on the identified percentage. The student also uses incorrect calculations. The student has divided the number required by the number of seconds it takes to make one product. This should have been a multiplication. The results of this incorrect calculation is a significant underestimation of the time needed to produce the number of items and leads to a poor decision regarding the speed of production. This table lists advantages and disadvantages of different scales of production and adds little to any justification, and the student does not relate their choice to any of the information that is in the table. Mass production is stated as the most appropriate scale of production, but it is based on a series of incorrect assumptions and is not supported with evidence.